Welcome back everyone, and we're heading on into the third and final video for part 8 of episode 5. Let's look at the example that I left you with on the second video at the end, and we'll see what you got in your code versus what I have on screen here. So the question was, we had to supply some more data to the purchasing manager. She's still after some information, as there appears to be some discrepancies that she's seeing, so she wants to make sure that everything is tallied up correctly. So she's asked for the following information based on transactions for 2015 only: supplier name, supplier category, payment used in the transaction, the supplier's invoice number, and the pre-tax amount per invoice. Now that's all pretty much just individual rows, transactional information, but then she's also asked for some totals around here, so we need to do some sort of sub-select to put this information in. So one is a pre-tax amount per supplier, and the other one is the pre-tax amount for the entire year. So again, we've got two levels to think about there. Now, the way I went about tackling this scenario was to simply build the standard transactional information first. So we needed a supplier name, we needed to bring in the supplier category, which is of course from a different table. So we joined that on the supplier category ID. Then we needed to bring in the payment method name, which is in the payment methods table in a slightly different schema. However, looking at the payment methods here, we can see that there is no join. Payment method ID is probably the only join criteria, but if we look on these tables above, there's no payment method ID. So we needed to bring in another table before joining to payment methods. So the only other table would be the supplier transactions. You may have had to have searched for this, or you may already know from previous knowledge that this is the table to use. So if we select everything using our Control 3 technique, we've got our payment method ID in there. So we need to bring in that table first. And we join supplier ID onto supplier ID, which links us back to the suppliers table. Brilliant stuff. Then from there, we can bring in payment methods. We've called it P, and we join the payment method ID from this table to that table. And we could then bring in our payment method name. Fantastic stuff. And of course, it's a good thing we brought in this table here, as we needed to filter on the transaction date, being 2015, the year of. We also needed to bring in supplier invoice number and the pre-tax amount for each invoice, which is from the transaction table. So we needed to bring it in anyway, but we of course needed to bring it in before payment methods in order to join that onto it. Fantastic stuff. So that caters for the row level transactional data here. Now we needed to put in a few aggregates just to bring back the data required. So the total pre-tax amount per supplier, we know we've got to group by the supplier. So this is where I brought it in as a sub-select on that column, selecting the sum of the amount excluding tax from the transaction table, where the date is 2015, the year itself, and this is where we brought in our filter, our group by, in other words, our join. We joined on the supplier ID. So we know that for every supplier ID, we're getting their specific amount including tax, a total of. Now I've pseudonymized it, but again, you don't need to pseudonymize a query which has only got one table. a bit of a waste of time, but there you have it. So that gives us our total supplier pre-tax amount, because we've grouped it by supplier ID there. Next, we have to bring in the pre-tax amount for the whole of 2015. So basically it's exactly the same thing, just stripping out the part where we link to the supplier. And that gives us our total amount across the entire year. Let's run that off, see what we get. And there you have it. So each individual customer down to this very specific supplier invoice number, and of course the amount for that specific invoice, but then we get the total supplier pre-tax amount, and you can see for Fabricam Inc. it's 294, 294, 294. So we're getting the same amount for every customer there, every supplier should I say, because we have joined it on the supplier ID. Lastly, we have the pre-tax amount in 2015, and as you can see, regardless of customer, regardless of whatever line it's on, it's all the same going down the whole list. Quite a big number there, and we ended up with 714 rows. So, how did you all get on with that one? I'm sure you all got the same amount of rows and same data as me, but that's simply the answer from the previous video. Okay then, let's head on to the subquery itself. Now it's pretty much very simple concept to grasp. All we're doing is we are putting a select statement in our where clause. So previous examples, we've chucked it in either as a column, as you can see here, or we've somehow put it in within our join itself. So it'll be your sub-selects, your inline views, etc., etc., derived tables. But this one is just simply called a subquery when it's put in the where clause. Don't worry too much about the naming. All it is the same thing in the where clause there. What we're simply trying to do here is pull the order line, order ID, order line ID, and the quantity for each line. We're going to have a look at the average quantity across every order line here, just to compare it. And all we're doing in our select statement, in our where clause, is simply saying where the quantity on the order line is greater than the average quantity across all the order lines. So if we look at that there, if we run that off, wrong button, execute that, we can see it's 40. So we know that there's an average of 40 quantity wise across all rows in the order lines table. Let's run that off quickly. And there you go. There you can see your order ID, order line ID, and there's 100 units on that order line, and 100 is above the average quantity there. If we scroll down, you can see all those values are greater than 40. So anything less than 40 is simply not shown. Pure and simply, that's pretty much it for the subquery. Pretty quick and easy for you there. It's just simply putting your query within your where clause. Now the whole idea to make these sort of subqueries run efficiently and quickly is basically to select one single value. So whatever value you're comparing your column against, this one's greater to, it needs to be one value, because if you return multiple values in your select statement here, it wouldn't know which one to choose when it's ensuring that the quantity is greater than. Fortunately, as we know when we run this one off, hit execute, we only end up with one single value, which is 40 in this case. So we know that we can say the quantity is greater than 40, then we'll return these results up here. If not, then we simply do not return them at all. And that is the subquery. Let's go over another example really quickly to make sure we get this in our heads. Make sure you fully understand the concept. Quite an easy one to grasp. Let's have a go at this question then. So the warehouse manager needs to ensure that there is enough stock in storage for the next sales campaign that the marketing and sales team are busy putting together. He therefore needs to know the quantity of stock for each item that is below the average stock quantity for every item in the entire warehouse. So, you think you can give that one a try? If you want to give it a go, pause the video. If you don't get the answer or you struggle a bit, do not fear. We will be going over the answer in a second. Right then, let's see if we can extract the data required. So first things first, we'll start off with a good old select star from, and of course one of the things we need to know is items, and we'll get those from the, look in the warehouse schema, the stock items table. I'm going to call that I, and that'll give us our stock item name, because obviously we're going to be pulling the quantity of stock for each item, and then we're going to be getting the average as well. Okay then, so what we need to do next is bring in the quantity of stock for each item, that is, and of course we're looking at the item holdings table for that one. So we're going to inner join stock item holdings. We're going to call that H on H dot stock item ID equals I dot stock item ID. So we're really showing our knowledge here of the database itself, all the different tables. We're getting really proficient at linking the tables together. Fantastic stuff. So from H, we're probably going to pull the quantity on hand, more than likely. Yeah, we'll go for quantity of hand. Quick look at that table with the control 3, quantity of hand, etc, stock item ID. Fantastic stuff. So we've got our quantity of hand for each item that is below the average stock quantity for every item in the entire warehouse. Right, so first of all we need to build a little subselect, or a subquery in this case, to get the average stock quantity for every item in the entire warehouse. So it'll be along the same lines as this one here, but we also need to make sure that we only show items that are below this average stock quantity. So that's going to be in our where clause, and that's the quantity on hand is below, should we say less than, and we'll build up our subselect very quickly. Select average quantity on hand from stock items holdings. There you have it. That's pretty much it. So we can double check that our subselect here works, and we get 133,670. Fantastic stuff. So we know that that one single value, we can say if its quantity on hand is less than that one single value, then we're going to be returning these results. So let's have a look. Let's see what we get when we run off our little query. There you have it, quantity on hand. Now how do we know 100% that our code is actually working, that our filter is returning the right values? Again, all we need to do is simply bring this in as a subselect within a column, and we will run it off again. So there you go. You can see quantity of hand is definitely less than 1333. Let's check it out. Yeah, definitely it's looking good. And of course we can even order the results if we wanted to. Order by the H quantity on hand. Make that descending, so that's from largest to smallest. Run it off again, and there you go. So our largest value was 129, which is definitely less than 133 there. That's 129,000, 133,000. Fantastic stuff. So we know that our filter is working. So if we were then to send the data off, we could delete whatever lines we don't need. So that is it, purely and simply. The subquery itself, very, very simple. All you're saying here is give me this one value in this little query here, and in my where clause make sure some column value is less than, greater than, equal to, etc. that one single value that that subquery produces. Pretty straightforward. You all happy with that? Brilliant stuff. Let's move on to the next query I have for you. Looking at this one then, what if you wanted to bring a little bit more complexity into the subquery? As you've seen here, all I've done is written this select statement from a table as one single line. I haven't brought it in one under the other like I've done here, because this is obviously a little bit more complex. We're pulling different lines, different columns. We've got several joins going on, so I've kept it neat here. However, because we're just selecting one value, one average from one table, it's quite quick and easy to just bang the code out in one line. However, what if we wanted to see all the values for just 2015, for example? Well, obviously, first of all, we'd need to filter our orders on a specific date. So let's have a look at that. So we're looking at the order date here. Here you go, we've seen 2013, etc. What if we wanted 2015? So let's put it above here. And again, it doesn't matter which order you put your where clauses in here, the different lines in your where clause, the different conditions. What we're going to say is order date equals 2015. As you can see, this is just simply taking the same query that we used up here. Right then, so we're now filtering on an order date, the year of which is 2015. Fantastic. And we also want to filter on the quantity being greater than the average. However, we need to make sure it's also the average in 2015. And of course, order lines doesn't contain the order date. As you can see here, that comes from our orders. So we need to now build up a slightly more complex query to get our order date filter in there. So what I'm going to do is simply pull this out and start building another standard select statement. Make sure I'm happy that I can work with the formatting that I'm used to. We're going to simply grab this code here, grab the order lines as well, in fact grab the whole thing and simply paste it in there. Let's line it up for you. There you go. So that is pretty much all I've done there. Let's do that. So you can see the two brackets. Here's your open and here's your code. So exactly the same manner as I've done up here in these two queries, all we're doing is producing one single value that we're going to put a condition against. So let's see, now that I've got my filter there, and of course we can make sure we've got our pseudonyms there. Let's see what value we get when we run that query off. If, of course, it works. And there you have it, 39, whatever the value was when we ran this one off here, 40. So we're getting a slightly different value. So for 2015, we had an average of 40 there. So we know that once we've run this code off, we get our one single value. So we can say where the year is 2015 on the order date, and the quantity from our order lines table is greater than 40, pure and simply. So we've gone from producing a single value out of a very, very small select statement to producing a single value out of a slightly larger one. And of course, we are simply just putting it in line like that, so it follows the same formatting as we've done up here to make it a little bit easier to read. Because if you imagine this in one long line, we'll be heading across to the right quite a lot and have to scroll across like mad to see that. Right then, let's run it off and see what we get. There you go. Quantities of 70, 30, 40, 90, 100, etc. And of course, if we want to double check once again, we can simply put this in as our average. There we go, average is 39, 70 is greater than, so it's 40, 90, 150, etc., etc. All the way down, you can see that our quantity is greater than our average. So once again, although this looks quite complex and quite messy compared to this, for example, we're effectively doing exactly the same thing, but all we're doing is putting in a few filters there. Again, pretty straightforward, building on the previous example. But that's how you simply bring a little bit more complexity into your subquery. And of course, if you wanted to, you can write this select statement outside of your main one to build it up, and then just simply bring it in, pop your brackets on, and off you go, especially in the subselect here. But remember, in all cases, you're simply trying to get one single value in order to make some sort of comparison with or against. And that's all you really need to worry about. Right then, let's build on your skills with another training example. Now I'm going to leave you with this little scenario here. Give it a try. Let's see how you go. It's a step-by-step guide for you, and we will see how well you do in the next video. So the question is that the purchasing manager needs to check how much more stock of favorite items is being purchased in 2016 compared to the average amount in 2015. She only wants the data on items within purchase orders that are above the average stock value in 2015 though. She's not interested in ordered stock that is less than the 2015 average. Okay, so everything must be greater than this 2015 average. So that tells me there might be a little subquery in there. Okay then, so first step one, build up a query to show the average ordered outers for all orders in 2015. Again, you need to make sure that this only generates a single value. Step 2 then, once you've got that and you've checked it's all working, you're getting your average figure, you need to then build up the following columns. You've got your supplier name, stock item name, purchase order ID, and your ordered outers, ensuring you filter all the purchase orders to those placed in 2016. Because remember, we wanted all the stock for 2016, but we wanted to compare them with the average in 2015. That's why you have two different dates in your two different filters on your two different queries that you're writing. Next, in step 3, filter your results in a where clause on the ordered outers being greater than the results of the query in step 1. So this is where you then bring your step 1 query in as a subquery. Think you can handle that? I think you all can. Give it a try. Next, of course, we need to check our data. So once you've brought that in and you've checked that you are getting results when you run your query off after step 3, then copy the subquery from your where clause, place it as a column subselect, just like we've done in previous examples, to test that the ordered outers in the 4th column in step 2 are in fact above the average. So we'll do a similar check like we did by copying and pasting the code in there. I think you can all handle that. I'm sure you can. We'll go over it in the next video. So just simply follow the steps above and I'm sure you'll be fine. Until we meet again, in what we're going over will be part 9 of episode 5. I wish you all a fantastic day.